Hello techies, I'm Divya here. On behalf of CyberBrainer, don't you think the world of tech is evolving faster than ever? Now is the perfect time to dive in and build the skills that will take you places. With CyberBrainer, we are putting you in the driver's seat of your own future. We at CyberBrainer don't just teach your interest. We believe that knowledge is power, but it's applied knowledge that truly sets you apart. Whether you're diving into data science, mastering artificial intelligence, or exploring the world of cybersecurity, our courses are designed to give you the skills that matter. So let's jump into the session and make the future yours today. Thank you.
VMUM is used for messaging as a messaging broker between new applications and simple messaging broker write. And the four operations in the VMUM component publish. I'm sorry, one published, two consumed and the listener. And fourth one is publish consumed. The four operations. Just you need to know and practice once. That is enough. And in last session, we discussed about publish and consume. These are both one-way operations. One way means if you develop a flow in Flow and you configure a component called publish. What publish will do is publish. We'll publish a message to the VMUM queue. In the VMUM queue, there is a queue, is there? You can name any name to this. You can view name to this. It will publish a message to this queue and move ahead processing the next message. Move ahead and next process will process that message, but it won't expect any response from the VM. Just publish one way and execute the next process. But in the VM, if you define any queue, if you name any queue, write VM1 or any queue. In the last example, I give a name as a VM1. It's internally, it has two channels. Every queue has two channels. One is a primary channel and second is a replay channel. A primary and what's the other one? Replay channel. Replay queue. It's primary queue and replay queue. Replay queue. Each queue has that two channels. Each queue has two channels. One is for taking the input and one is the giving the output like that. You can remember like that. Input out. Publish always places in the input. It won't expect any response from the output. Just put the message over here and move forward to the next process. Whereas a consume. Also, if you configure a consume and if you configure to a queue, take the message from the queue like you configure a VMUM1. What happens is go to the primary channel and get the message and go to the next process. These two, this is also one way. This is publishing the message to the channel and this is consuming the message to the channel. That's it. Whereas the next two components, these two components, listener and publish, these are two-way components. Listener and publish, consume. These two components are two-way components. Let me give you one small example and I can show you the Anypoint to be. I configure a flow. As part of the processing, I configure a component. This is called VM publish consume. Pub and consume. VM publish consume component. What it will do is it will publish a message to the VM queue to the primary channel. Some people call it as main channel, main queue. In the primary channel, it will publish the message. And it will expect a response from the replay channel. There are a few components you configure as part of the flow. The control won't move further until it has a response from the replay channel. It puts a message in the primary channel and waiting for response on the replay channel. It's blocked for some time. This is one way, and it's waiting for the same. And there is one more component, a listener. For all the three components we discussed are event processes. What are publish consume and publish consume? These three components are event processes. They do processing on that event. Whereas the one component in the VM stack that is called listener, that is event source. Listener, listener, VM listener. Listener by definition. What is meant by listener is keep on listening for messages. That guy is called listener. We have HTTP listener. What HTTP listener will do? HTTP will listen. This is the HTTP machine. We saw HTTP listener in your examples. As part of HTTP listener, we compute one port. We to infig 1. There is one port in your machine, 8081 in your system. Then it's not always checking for messages in 8081. Just keep on checking every 1 second, 2 seconds. There is some time configure internally. Every second is keep on checking from your postman. Postman, if you give localhost to 8081, then we put a message in 8081 port. Your listener will take that message and process the message. The fundamental is listener is a guy is always, checking on a port on a place. VM also in VM listener. Will you tell where it has to listen? I tell that the VM please listen on the VM1 queue. Just keep on listening for messages in the VM1 queue. When you find a message in VM1 queue, it takes a message and it processes that message. After processing finishes, it puts the message back to VM, but it puts in a replay queue, not in the main queue. Take the message from primary queue, process the message, and after processing it, places the message in the replay queue. That's the VM listener. VM listener. It listens where? Where does it listen? It listens in the queue or listens in I don't know. Like I don't know, what does it listen at the beginning? Listener listens on the queue. On the primary channel. It checks the primary channels all the time. All the time. Your example like HTTP listener. Is that what you're talking about? Yes, I give an example. HTTP listener always listens on the port. You can't pick that. Where the VM listener listens to the main queue of the VM. Exactly correct. And the main queue of the VM is not. It's something that you have to define first, right? Define first. The system MuleSoft or the studio we have, it doesn't create one by itself, or it doesn't exist unless you create, right? The VM listener. The queue I mean. As for the VMan configuration, we need to create a queue first. Once you create, then you can let VMan listener listen to queue. Exactly. Correct. And then it checks every time if there are message in the queue. And then if you bring it in and inside the flow to process those message, it will then process it and it puts back the answer into the replay queue. Exactly correct. Excellent. Now I understand. Thank you. Very good. Wonderful. Now this guy, right? The first day I told this published consumed component guy. This guy places the message in the primary queue and waiting for the message on the reply queue, right? Once the listener finishes and places that message in the reply queue, it picks up message. Then it moves further from this component to this component. These two should be configured as a batch, because if you configure only publish consume and you don't configure listener, means your publish consume will time work. You have to have VM listener. Exactly. Then after that you have a publish consume. First you can define any manner. Order is not important, but these two has to be defined in your application. Because these two are two-way components, because the publish consume is placing the message in the primary queue and expecting the response on the reply queue, right? Until it gets response on reply queue, it won't move further. It's blocked here itself. Whereas listener is taking the message from the primary queue and of processing, it is replying on the reply queue. Right. I don't know another thing. Another channel has to pick it up from the reply and do something with the events or the message. This guy listen, he reads the process, the message and put in the reply, and then either publish, consume or consume can go there and pick it up. Consume can access only the main queue. It takes the message from main queue only. I see. Consume only access to the main. Right? That is one different. How about the publish? Publish also takes the main queue. The only other and a channel that we can use is the public consume. After the VM listen. Got people has no one doubt. Always my students ask, the doubt is see both consume and listener. Both are consuming the messages from the VM. Then what the difference between consume and listener? Consume and listener. Consume also consume the message from the queue. Vima also consume the message from the queue. Listen also consume the message from the queue. Then what is the difference between consuming using consume component and consuming using user component? I think the way you explained to me was that the consume can only and consumes message on the from the main channel or main queue. That's it. That's it. Where the listener it can also get the information from. This is the main queue, but it puts the message into reply queue. That's true. But in terms of consuming the message, the primary difference is but consume C. One consumes the queue write, and the other one listens. Let me put the laser. This is Veeam listener. I'm listening to the listener. Is listening to the queue called Veeam1. He is also consuming from the consuming message from the VM1 queue. And then also listening messages on the VM1. The primary difference is in the behavior they are consuming the message. If you observe a consume, somebody triggers this. Listen from the postman. If you get the then it will call consume. Consume will go and pick up the message. If somebody not called this listener consume will sit idly. It won't go and pick the message until it gets the invocation. I see. And it's going to the message. It doesn't listen. It just consumes the message. Consumes the message. Whereas the listener, nobody needs to involve this one. Just keep on listening on the queue. It's message there. It's message there. If it's available, then it picks up the message immediately. That's right. Do you know the name? Actually, the name says everything, right? One listen is the queue and the other one consumes that. Somebody to tell to consume, hey, consume, go and pick up the message. They need to go and pick the message. Or else it's idly. That is the point. I don't know. I don't know why we make It's very simple the way that they define it or instruct it, but somehow I don't know. And we think it's more than We're thinking it's more than what the name. You know what the name says, but it's. You're right. One listens the queue and then does whatever they need to be done after. And we're the consume one. Somebody has to tell that to consume the message. Exactly. That is the primary difference between consumer and listener. This is very important. Like people often confuse, replace queue in the main queue. Every queue, the reply queue is idly. It means reply queue. Always people focus on the main queue. Even if you read any kind of stuff in the books, in articles, they won't do the idea about the reply queue actually. How this message Then for two-way communication, there are two channels. One is a main channel and the other is a two-way communication. That you need to understand. Then let me quickly give you an example of the publisher also. I'm configuring one more. This one I'm giving part as /pub engine. Publishing engine. This is the publishing component. It's too like consumed. It needs to be. Somebody has to tell them to. Somewhere. It requires input, right? It's waiting for someone like a listener to ask either publish or consume. I need to get you. I'm sorry, Adam. Like you know, the difference between the public consume and what you call the input. Like you were saying earlier, I'm sorry. The difference between listener and public consume. Still public consume. Somebody has to tell it. Zach? To go there, publish it or consume. Correct. Where listener and it listens to queue. Only listener is the only component in the VM stack. It is an event source. Rest of all the three components are event processors. That's right. That's right. Event processor. When you are confining the first time the VM component, right? That time you need to create the queues. Create the queues. Like VM1, VM2 are created queues. First component. Next component onwards. You can use that configuration or you can create some more queues. That depends upon your requirement. See, I'm using this configuration called vmconfig. vmconfig is a configuration. It already has two queues. If you want to, you can use this configuration to publish and consume. Or you don't want to use this configuration. You want to create a new configuration. That's fine. Then what you can do is, instead of, choosing this one, let's add one. And I'm adding edit in line. I'm adding one more queue. Something like I'm giving VM as VM2. See the configuration name as VM component 1. You can use that also to customize your want. Now I'm publishing to, you have to give a name. Let me see the configuration now. vmconfig is the one configuration that has two queues. I'm VM2. And I have one more vmon configuration. The name of the vmconfig one. Or you want to change the name also. vmconfig one by default comes. And it has the queue called VM2. Right. Now in your components, when you're publishing and consuming, you can choose using which configuration you're using. You're using vmconfig or vmconfig one. In the publish, I'm using the configuration of vmconfig. Right? As a consumer, I'm using configuration vmconfig. Also, If you want to change, I can change the configuration. I can use vmin config one. Depends upon our requirement. You can choose that one. What I remind you is your project may have multiple vmin configurations. That's my intention. Right. I mean, like maybe one that listens and the other one might be published and consumed. And maybe the other one is published again. On the listener also, I'm using the vmin config one. Now what I'm doing is I'm publishing the message over here. And the text message is consumed by your listener. And here what I'm doing is I'm adding some kind of separate component. Somebody said I'm printing over here. This message can process. We discussed about the debug process, right? The other process, the debug process. How to debug the new application, the debug process. I think we touched it in the first couple of sessions, where we can put a marker or breakdown. Breakpoint. That's important. We need to see we can see all, what variables are created, what payload, what other attributes are there. That's right. Any point of time you want to check, you can check. If something is going wrong, that's quite useful. The debug is quite useful. There's some point there? Don't worry. Anytime while discussing some complex examples also, I will show the debug. Now it is deployed. Now I want to use this component and publish something over here. I'm going to Postman. And what's the path I have used? I used path called pubcon. I've got 4 time configure 885. In the Postman 880 file, I'm using pubcon. And I'm posting some message over there. I'm posting the body. Some text message I'm posting. Text message as order. 2, 3. I'm posting some random message. Do you want to do like attributes? That payload. I don't want to do this. Some simple text message I want. I can tell you how dynamically we can capture and that also send as a response. Use a different component. Set payload is not supporting that one. Start. If I send this order got processed. What's in the payload? How I'm getting that response is. Here this consumes. I'm going to write. Not actually some reason. One set. Now you're seeing my any point to the right. Any point to you. My friend is not acting. This consume component. This is a publish component. What we will do is, this will publish to the UI to the main queue. And this is because that message and these are processes. What is happening is, let me try to capture this one. Whatever message I post from the postman, here multiple things you need to understand. I posted a message. And once the user will do, convert this to new event message. That is just right. Attributes, payload and variables. Right? That is given to the publish component. But new event is given to the publish component. More events. But component. What this publish component will do? We configured one queue, right? The queue name is given as. It has the primary channel and the replay channel. Right now it has new event in hand. The published component will do is, it converts new event to the VM message. VM message. The VM message structure is standard messaging structure. Error on body. Whatever is in the payload, the payload content is copied to the body. And by the header default, it puts something. But we don't have any control on the header. Whatever. We put some headers inside header section. And it's given to the VM2 primary channel. The body goes to the primary channel. Then what's the user is doing? The user is always checking messages on the primary channel. You have a few seconds to check the information on the primary channel. Once this component puts the message in the primary channel, it pick up that message. And given to me. Now what is this message? This message is VM message, right? Because this guy is converted to VMN and put the VM message inside. The VMN listener is capable of understanding the VM message. It would understand the VM message. That's right. Then it converts that VM message to the new event. Payload component. The payload component modifies the payload. Whatever payload, existing payload, whatever it modifies the payload. And what payload it puts is, I just defined that payload. This is this order. What causes the payload? It puts that, it modifies this message. The Laravel is not doing anything. But anyway, after processing, the same new event is given back to your VMN listener. What VM needs to do is it converts the response new event to VM message again. And then VM message put in the reply channel. This publish console component is waiting for response to the reply channel. What is this listener? The listener makes the message in the reply channel and pick up that message. And it's sent back to your postman. Therefore, the postman is able to see that message. When we got a response back on the, what do you call it? The postman. It means it went through all that and we get the result back from the publish consume channel. If you could go back to your postman now. And is this how you configure right now? Like this one, the order got processed. This one. Popcorn, I configure right now. That's the second, that's the listener. Then the HTTP listener popcorn. Which one is there? HTTP listener. The HTTP listener. HTTP listener. And for postman, I'm giving this popcorn. Then that's the first one, right? Popcorn then went to the publish consume, and then it published the message into the vmon write. View. And then the listener sub the second subflow, and the listener listens to the queue, the vmon q1. And then set the payload, and then logged write. Then, after that the publish consume, read the message from the reply queue. And then publish it in the postman. You know it did very quick though. We were not waiting much. It was very fast. Can you for just configuration wise, can you go one more time? The tabs what's configure what? See the first component in conference. Is that right? This is to take the message from the postman. That's right. And then call it the popcorn. The path is popcorn. The path is pop. And the local host is 885. That is configuration of your HTTP listener. Next, I configured a component called publish consume component. Here I am referring the configuration as vmon config1. This is a configuration referring. See that vmon config1, it has one queue. The queue name is. I can refer this configuration. I know. You had a choice. But this one we're using vim q2. I published the payload. Payload. What payload? I'm coming from the client, the same payload I'm putting over here. That put the message in the vim q2. Thank you. And see if it is. See one more configuration is timeout. Configuration timeout 5 seconds. What is timeout? 5 seconds. Do you have any idea, Adam? Let me see if we can understand. You will connect to the VM Q2 and put some message. If there is a problem or something like that, it's going to time out after 5 seconds. It puts the message on the main queue and waits for the response on the replay queue right. This one, it doesn't wait much. 5 seconds. Within 5 seconds waiting to the reply queue. Does it get answers in 5 seconds? It's less than 5 seconds, right? Because the result of that message and result, there is much processing. There is a result only set to payload is there, logarithm is there. It won't take that much time, right? But normally you'll in real world work situation, you expand that time, right? If your listener has much configuration, database lookups, and some other configuration, it's processing. Sometimes, therefore, we put that much of amount of time, whatever time is. No, thank you. Thank you. Now then, and it published that into the VMQ2. And then after that, the listener, the second one, and vmem listener kicks in, right? This one comes in. It looks the Vikut and then grabs this time we don't tell them what the message is, just grab whatever the VMQ2, right? Whatever. It doesn't care what kind of message it is, it just grabs whatever the VMQ2 has. In the primary channel. In the primary channel. It grabs there and then it creates a new payload. And the payload, you put it where something got processed. And that it got logged. Then after that the consume, publish, consume gets the response back from. Whenever we've set the payload, and when we set the payload is that one. It sends the message back to the reply channel. No, just we are modifying the payload over here. It's not, it won't set. Just we're changing the payload. You change the payload. Then what? After that, it wants to log. We are just empty log, but if you put it print something, you print it. That's fine. Then it went back to the message flow. Message to reply. And when it comes to message flow, then it puts stuff in the reply channel. Like you. And then public consume gets the I have a question. Then why don't you put a log or something? You can put over there. No, I have a question. This is right now. We're not seeing like I want to see what the reply channel has, what the reply. That's as invisible actually. Because the contents of the queues and channels in the VM. What then? What we don't know is that the last message you got, where it says that something got processed. We don't know if that's coming from on the second flow or that's coming from after publish consume. We don't know. It's from second flow itself, right? We did modifications in the second flow. You don't know. Ideally we can do, but in this case we are doing. We do modifying or the payload and sending back to reflection. You're right. You set the payload, you logged it. And you know that is hard to see, like from here, what information that the reply, what do you call that? That approach and our queue has, I don't know, but hopefully we'll learn more later, but I think by now I understand the concept. At this point, I just want to understand how the message flows on, how the logic works. And later, I think when we have a real-time situations, no, I think we will see that and things under the hood. I don't know. I think I'm clear about these two, one-way, two-way main channel, replay channel, nothing right. Try to do something. This example, then you'll get idea for that. That's right. The next thing is try to see this always. You know any confirmation you need on the graphical end of the source code and try to see what code got generated in the source code mode. See how this vManus conferencing is happening. How the HTTP configuration got created in the source code. This understanding is a necessary one. And if you see every component, right? Every component has some unique ID. Doc ID is unique, ID for every component. It's automatically got created. When you configure a component unique, ID got associated with that component. Don't worry, I'm not going to understand. Unique ID for each level component. Listener to unique ID, publish to unique ID, logarithm to unique ID. What the unique ID is, you go to configuration. See for this listener, this doc::ID, right? This is unique. ID got generated here. Is ID. This ID identifies this component uniquely. Whereas vmonconfig, this is a unique ID for vmonconfig. vmonconfig1 is a unique ID. As of now, to then, and there's a significance of this uniqueness. Later, when you're comparing the M unit and other kind of stuff, then you understand the importance of the unique ID. Just remember that each component has a unique ID associated with the component. Doc. What is the doc? Is that what is that? What is the doc? That ID. Doc::ID. What is this sound for? Like a document identification number. Oh, it's a document ID. That's fine. And next step I want to discuss is a very important one. Two things I want to discuss. First, I discuss the properties and then I go to the main one. Let me go to the next section. See in your project, right? In the real time, right? We have environments, right? We have the dev environment and we have the QA or test environment and we have reprod. Some people call it as a UAT. And finally, production. Pardon me. QA or test, right? We have test environment, development environment, UAT environment, production. What's a UAT? User acceptance test. User acceptance test. Before going production, we will showcase our application to the client. The client will verify that application. Is the application as per his expectations or not? That the user has to. The user needs client over here, the end client. If he satisfies, then he moves to the production. Finally, right? Our goal is we need to move our application to the production that our customers can use our application, right? That's right. Before that, we won't directly do the deployment to production. We need to do the development. After we get confidence, our application is working good and we deliver our application to the test environment, where testing team will do the rigorous testing on our application, right? They do testing and they identify bugs and we fix the bugs and we push the QA. The cycle is going on. After some time, our application is stable. QA guys are satisfied. Then they give sign off. This application has, very minimal bugs and no bugs. We can move this application to production. They give sign off. Then we deploy to the UAT and finally we deploy to the production, right? But here why I am discussing all this kind of, this concept is a new software. The new software. What you need to do is you need to connect different kinds of systems. For example, we need to connect to databases. Database is the source of the data where the data resides, right? Do we have only one database for all environments? We could have multiple. Production is the database, is the live information where your customers are using. This database we can't use for development, right? While developing the product, we take some samples, small database with less capability, and we develop production. We develop product based on this database. This is a development database. We don't expect much in the performance on the production. Sorry, development database, right? We use the development database, and after the QA team use the QA database. QA team has a QA database. And finally, we move to the product database, right? Maybe this is running on one IP address like 100.20.1.2. Maybe this is running on 2.6.5.2 and this is running on 168.129.6. something. Every database is running on different machines. Right? When you are considering your Mule application, you are developing the application and your task is you need to push information to database. You need to insert a report to database. Then you develop a component that will insert to database, which database you configure. If you configure dev database, what happens? It always, insert reports to dev database, right? What you do when you are when you're moving your product, your application to QBA, you need to change the QA environment. Right? This point into the then point of QA. When you're deploying to the production, you again go and change this configuration to point to the production environment. Always you need to change, right? That is not recommendable. If you do any change, that has to test again. If you do any change in the code, then it has to move to test and then only go to production before the testing. You should not go to production because therefore the change is not recommended. A change is not encouraged. Same product. Whatever product we develop, that has to go to the QA and it has to go to production. If the change is not encouraged, then how will you manage these things? How do you manage different kinds of populations? Anamio, are you getting my idea? Actually, I am following very well. This is the, what do you call that? I don't know if you hear. I think you know this, like a CI/CD thing. Like every time you make a change or update the code, you need to be tested and, get a user acceptance and then. And no, you cannot be changing all the time. Perfect. Excellent. Right. For that what? How the Mule manages this? This is the application you're developing. Suppose you're developing some customer API application. Customer API application. We manage something called property files for each environment. That they will have their property file. In other words, it's called a UML file. A URL file. And for QA, we manage one more file. It's a QA file, QL file. And broad, we manage one more file. There's a broad file. Broad YAML file. What this file contains? This file contains the configuration related to the dev environment. If we have dev database, what is the host where the dev database is, configured? What is the port number? What username, password, all the stuff related to the dev environment. Dev database configuration, dev file system configuration. What's all the environment related to the dev environment? The production. The main is the production database configuration. Production, IP address production. Port number, all the stuff. Like it can be answered. You develop the code. And you take the configuration from that. You don't hardcode the code, just you take the configuration from the YAML file. You refer the YAML file and take the configuration. When you are deploying to the dev, you refer to the dev YAML file. When you are deploying to the production, you refer to the production YAML file. But here we won't hardcore any IP address, anything, something like that. Just you refer things from the other file. This is a concept. Let me do one simple example, then you understand. Let me go to one simple project. The field called project. The project is called something like a given properties demo. I'm taking the project. In this project, what I'm doing is I'm configuring one simple As of now, I'm confident that the part has something like calling some service. I'm calling some service like HTTP request. The other time I showed you, I added a request. I'm calling some service. The service is like, what service should I call? Some service I call. I call this service. There's something like this that exists. I'm sorry. I didn't know. There's something like that we can play with online. That's nice. This service I call. This takes one. Let me do one now. And the Adobe art, congratulations. Let's see. I was thinking it was the line of Gotham. I say that on my calendar. Source and sees the face is its way up. It is this I saw it. Edit that. This is the part. Finally, it's got. It's 2 times came. It puts together 2 times came. Something. This is not a question. But then if you see the configuration, the mirror state example API/int. Good. Right now let me run this one. Let me check it's working or not. The point I give as 80, A3, I remember that one, and you call it this. That is fine. I'm getting that right. No, cool. Now what? My requirement is this is a development. When dev this will come on when broad, it's not reasonably sounding, but just assume that this is our data coming from the front. This is coming the depth, something like that. My main concept is how I am managing the. You know how I am managing the environments. That is focus over here. Now if you observe this file, C host is 0.0.0. Host. This means it's work only on a local host. If I deploy this, applicants to that production also change. You are hard coding the post file. What I'm doing is I'm going to create something like property files. I'm creating over here. Right click on this resources new and select the file. I'm giving the name as dev.yom. I'm creating one more file. Assume I have two environments given production broad.yom. In that they would not yom. I'm comparing the. What is my first component? Let me go. All this stuff is not number required. First, I'm creating all the stuff, closing all the stuff. Now I'm opening the dev yom file. I'm opening the production yom file. I'm opening my properties file. Now this listener is there, right? This is the computation is different for dev environment and different for production environment. Right, listen to this. Now I'm going to use this at P. This is the right one. Assume for dev it is 883 port and for production 885 port. Here in the YAML file. YAML is a way we associate data in a parent-child relationship. It's like a, what do you call that? I forget the word stands for. But I forget the word. The yum stands for like a, it's like a, yet another modeling, another modern language. Now I want to define child for this API key. For that I need to do one tab, as post. A post is, in my case, is a local host or 0.0.0.0. You can do localhost also. That's also fine. And the port. This is that devyum file for dev. I'm assuming 8083 is a 4 port number 5. We have a path that us slash and then requesting. I have a cpeep request. The question has post. This is simply a quest component. Like this component, the host of the surface components. It's not write down the example. Is now. I will define the same thing to my production also. Production. I want to make, say, this T85, and this is the path there where I put the write and production. I want to call this service part service. This service, right? Everything is same, but path is changed to 5/1 at the production. Now here, instead of hard coding, you know a specific thing, I want to refer from this property files. How I refer is here, instead of putting 0.0.0.0, I put $view prices. If it's a parent.post yes.code listener, see, if you see over here, this is my site. The configure is the listener, the path and gain gas, all the. That means this is hef.path. Right, I'm giving this one, post means this. One port means ideally 3 paths. I configure this from the property files. I'm no hard coding anything over here, right? Because like the request, also I change. I change like I don't do hard code over here $half-teep.west.post. The three levels of it. FP is the parent is last one. I'm not sure I follow you and why you use a request. There is nothing in the request of it I define like that. You have P. Happy has those three things. The question has 1, 2, 3 things exactly. Under host at Pew, you grab the host and happy request path. Even you can. You know we can make this as a parent also fine because it's also fine. What I meant is I want to make this request stand up TB. You can say hippie dot. You can see. To get to the request, you have to use htb @request that request. Done that. Then that what host. Then this will come value. This will come. Thank you epi.request.post. You choose different, like that. Request not post this value. Now is 17 char. This AP is form right off with this thing. Base part, what's the base for the component is to go to. I should have both samples in the first one. I'll find anyone here. I'm popping this up. Now I'm doing changes in the source code. Request that, then whatever that you need. Now see, everything is you know nothing. Hard code is there. Everything you are referring from the property file. There is no environment. Specific configuration is there. Everything I refer from the property file. Now, even though you have a total of 2 different files, there is nothing here that shows you where the file path is. How does he know where to get the information under the property, under the resource? Very good question. Excellent question. Main resource. You are very good focus. It's really fascinating how you know. This is really amazing thing. One thing at the end of the day, you want to avoid the repetitive task, I like when things are set up this way. And also I like the specification Ramo thing. That tools is a great design. And that you want to things to be a dynamic, right? You don't want to hard code anything. I'm enjoying my friend. Oh, I want to develop out different suffragettes for development. That is my goal. If I want to get back to that down, what I need to tell you to pick up from this file. Go to global elements, and then we are creating configuration config. Create some configuration. Global configuration. I will tell which file I have to pick up. As you know, you can see there is one configuration. It is referring to the yellow dot yom. It means referring this yom, and this property is configured over here. Global configuration. Global configuration. Configuration properties. We need to tell which file we have to refer. As of now, I'm giving you the dev.yum that it looks into, dev.yum. This configuration, it looks for HTTP post. This will get prompted. Let me speak up on the web. Let me show you. While this one is going on, I have a question. And on the global elements. Or maybe it might be the configuration XML. Do you like? Next step, configuration XML. I did see that you put the file like a line 13. The system put that, but at the top you're asking to go like HTTP, request that host, that kind of stuff. Does it matter the order that it plays out here? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. On the global only. It is only global. No. No, if I test it right. No listener for endpoint diff. The listener is the report. The listener's report. This is not a production. I forgot to remove the slash. I saved it. It wasn't spotted. What we actually saw right. It works. Now, if you want to report a production, then what I need to do is I need to change the dev report. I'm saving it. No change. Stop. Stop. The same app, I just changed the property. If I, remove the URL, I get different results. We should get a different output. It's not a product. Not getting any response. It's not there, right? It's prod actually. It's prod. And what is not 85? One more request. For employee 1, you have to add a UI parameter. UI parameter. That time when the server is busy, the bot is not. It's not average. Now, even if you want to change anyone down, I need to go and change the file right. It's not good, right? Always input. I need to change the source code. It's not good, right? Make a copy. You want to add another line, or how does it work? Exactly. When you configure right, you need to tell while deployment. I want to deploy to the production. I want to deploy that parameter. You need to pass externally while deploying. What I'm doing is, I'm not hard coding over here. I'm just giving as a placeholder, like $. Open certificates. I'm giving just EMB as my placeholder. While deploying, I need to pass this EMB place. You want to deploy to production or you want to deploy to dev. This has to pass a runtime. I'm closing this one. And here are one configurations. There's something like argument system. I need to pass the argument as -d. To pass anything, I need to give as -e. And what is my variable name? EMB. I call it as imb. See, it was MB. I'm passing as a dev. Why? You want to give it in front. Whatever environment you want to deploy, that thing you give on dev front. But then you're hard coding. This one I'm running. Not hard coding in the source code. But you're making the environment in dev. You make it to be in dev. See, for this thing, right? For EMB, I'm passing the value over here. It will deploy to the dev. In the Mule application, I'm not doing any change. Mule application is saved. Tell me. When you right click and go to an argument, you were right clicking on the dev YAML or you were right clicking the project. The project run. Run configuration. Other project is the property. Then you create an argument. That's the part I understand. Now, the whole purpose of using environment was that you wouldn't have to hard code, whether it's dev or prod, right? But the argument you're passing as your hard coding is dev. Here I'm not hard coding. I'm passing this. No, here is perfect. You're passing the environment variable, right? Correct? But under the configuration, what was the price they want? Like a run project. What is the price that you want to create the argument? Run configuration. Run configuration. Here it is in the project. Which project you want to run the configuration? Pass the project. You do that and you click the arguments. And you click in the arguments. And then you say /den. They go to dev, right? Dev with the value there. Dev, you're pointing the argument to development, right? Exactly. If you want to do production, what do? Then do pass to prod. If I pass to dev, what happens? Then what we're saying? Then when this product is running, we're saying, then I don't know. Are we saying then this project is only dedicated to run against one environment? See the same product, right? Please do like, share and subscribe to our channel.